Welcome aboard to the world's finest strike podcast with your host and author of the novel Deception Underway, Patrick Riley. The show where sea stories come to life, liberty adventures are relived, and the voices of sailors past and present are heard loud and clear. Named in honor of the USS Hewitt DD-966, the world's finest strike destroyer, this podcast is dedicated to the men and women who served at sea and the unforgettable moments that shaped their lives. Whether you're a salty veteran, a curious civilian, or just here for the ride, you're in the right place. Let's dive in.
Welcome back. We are on episode 7 of the World's Finest Strike podcast. I'm your host, Patrick Riley. I'm promoting Deception Underway, like usual, at Underway Books. But I'm talking to different sailors and Marines because one of the big things is, what did we do at sea? What was kind of that adventure? How did we see the world? What was that mode of transportation? How do we get around there? But also, I wanted to talk about veterans. How are we promoting veterans? How are we helping veterans? And then there's no better person that I thought of than our commander, my commander at the local VFW Post in Parker, Colorado, Jim Espinoza. Jim, would like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi. Thanks, Pat. Thanks for having me on here. Everybody, I'm Jim Espinoza, and I'm the commander of the Veterans of Foreign Wars Post 4266 here in Parker, Colorado. And Pat, you're one of my guys, my junior vice commander in the post, and so glad to have you in the post, and I'm glad to come on your podcast tonight.
Absolutely. Yeah, one of the reasons why I was inviting you on, because like I said, we share sea stories anyways. We talk about, just kind of how we went through the military. We did serve around the same time because we were both Gulf War veterans. And then just recently, you won a very prestigious award. It's the 3rd annual award here in Douglas County. Yeah. So the Douglas County Community Foundation, DCCF
right, yeah, the Douglas
Hero
County
Award.
Community Foundation, yeah. So I won the military/veteran Hero of the Year for 2025, actually. And
right. And that gala was last week. Any good stories from the gala? How did that go?
It was on Friday night out at the Centennial Airport, out in one of the hangars, and I was actually kind of surprised on how large the crowd that was there for the event. And, they called us individually on stage to give us the award. And I didn't realize I was going to have to give some sort of an acceptance speech. So I was kind of brainstorming while they were giving the award to one of the guys in front of me, and I'm like, I better start thinking. And of course, I thought of a bunch of things to say, and the minute I got on stage, I forgot all of it, and I felt like I probably sounded horrible up there, and everybody said it was great. It was a great acceptance speech, so it was fun. It was a lot of fun. So I'm humbled and honored to have that award, and given the award for things that I've done in the veterans community, as well as, work that we've done at the VFW Post. So it's a good time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's a big part about it, is having that compassion, that extraordinary compassion. I know that's what they were talking about on the award. I found it out there online, and just knowing that, what you've done for our local post here in Parker and how quickly it's grown. It's great that we went to a larger meeting room. We still get out and get in front of the community, visit with veterans, maybe the veterans that cannot leave the house. We try to help them out. So, and even veterans that are kind of maybe struggling financially. I know we had a situation earlier, but I know we directed him into the right location,
Yeah.
and he was able to get some help. But
Yeah.
even like I said, just having that voice, that person to talk to, it's important. If there is a rise in suicides, okay, call us. Let's, and I know we have
Yeah.
special um, phone numbers within the VA to call, but if you even have a personal friend, it's a very good thing. And that's why I always enjoy working with the VFW and just the veterans in large,
Yeah.
except for when we're told that we took somebody's flags. So that's a little insight.
Right. That's a whole nother story. I'll
Right.
square that one away with them. But yeah, it's good to get out and help veterans in the community that need a hand. And unfortunately, there's some scammers out there, and that's something that the VFW has encountered several times this year. Is imposters, posers, if you will, claiming to be disabled veterans and taking advantage of our good nature. So, of course, we need to vet all of those requests and make sure they're legit so that, the funds are there for the people who truly need it. And those that are trying to scam the VFW and our post, we shut those guys down. So, just doing our due diligence, like they always say, trust but verify. So,
Mhm.
um, I'm glad you kind of stepped up and went a little bit above and beyond while I was trying to verify that last request. So, I
Yeah.
appreciate you doing that, Pat, and I'm glad we got that gentleman pointed in the right direction, and hopefully they got him taken care of down there.
Yep. Yep. Definitely. But yeah. So tell me a little about how did you go into the Marine Corps? What made you choose to be a Marine?
Yeah, well, my dad was a career Marine, a 30-year Marine, and he served in the Korean War with the First Marines at the Chosin Reservoir. And
Wow.
for people who don't know, the Marines were outnumbered. Yeah, I think it was like 10-1 at the Chosin Reservoir in Korea. The temperatures were, 60 to 70 degrees below zero, and then even more when you put in the wind chill factor. And it was not only the Koreans but the Chinese through multiple divisions at the First Marines at the reservoir there, and it was so cold that the Marines were their weapons had froze; they weren't even working. So it
Hmm.
was hand to hand combat, just wave after wave after wave on those guys. And my dad was there with First Marines, of course, and then after that, he became a drill instructor in the Corps, and later on in his career, served during Vietnam. So, growing up, it was a pretty tough household with the man there, and he kind of used a little reverse psychology on me, and I was kind of a punk when I was in high school. Never got in any real trouble, but I was your typical knucklehead, and he told me, he goes, yeah, you'd never make it in the Corps. They'd never take you. You'd never make it. And I kind of took that as a challenge, and I said, all right. So one day I decided I'm gonna show him, and I said, hey, Dad, I think I want to join the military. And he says, well, he goes, you gotta look at all the branches, son. Just look at all the branches. And I said, okay, come with me to the recruiting office. And I walked in, and I literally did what he said. I took a look at all of them. I walked in and I literally looked at each one of them. And then I walked into the Marines office and I sat down and I said, I want to be a Marine. And my dad's chin just about hit the floor, and it was on from there. So, I did really good, scored pretty high on the ASVAB, and they offered me whatever job short of being an officer, whatever I wanted to do was open to me. And, like the typical 18-year-old who's full of testosterone, of course, I want to join the infantry, and I'm thinking, man, that's going to be cool, man. Riding around in helicopters, blowing stuff up, it's the kind of stuff that interests an 18-year-old kid, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Absolutely.
that's the route I went. And, I went in 87. I enlisted in 86 on the delay entry, went in summer of 87, and, graduated through boot camp there. And my dad showed up at our graduation. And of course, he was a drill instructor at San Diego, so that was his old stomping grounds. Literally, he stomped a lot of heads at that recruit depot. And, he came in to see my graduation. And when it was over, the graduation was over, the commanding officer of Recruit Depot was a 2-star general at the time. And the general was walking past my dad and I, and my dad starts yelling at him, and he starts calling him Billy, Billy. And the general turned and he looked at him. He said, Art? Well, it turns out they had served together in Korea when the general was just a lieutenant. And yeah, so I'm standing at attention, locked and cocked in front of the general, and him and my dad are hugging, and puts me at parade rest. And I thought that was pretty cool. I kind of had a connection with the old Corps and the new Corps. Serving with one of the generals that my dad served with in the war. So that was cool.
Oh, that's amazing. That's an amazing story to hear how that all just came back together. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. So you went in a year before I did. I went in 88, summer 88 down in Orlando, a little different. It was just hot as hell for me and all the humidity. And of course I'm going back next week. My son moved down there. So we talked about that one, but so I'm going down there to help him out. And I'm just looking at it going, it's going to be hot, but it's not going to be as hot as marching around on the grinder with, dungarees on, long sleeve shirts, and it just sporadically rains here and there, and the humidity goes out the roof. So, always not that fun. But so after you got out of boot camp, what was your first assignment?
So I went through the School of Infantry out at Camp Pendleton here in California, and graduated through that. I was a 0351, which was a anti-tank assaultman. And, that was, back then it was either the SMAW shoulder fired weapon or the Dragon anti-tank weapon. And, when I graduated from School of Infantry, all of my buddies that we were graduating with, everybody was getting these great duty stations. Guys were getting orders to Hawaii and Marine barracks here, Marine barracks there. And, they kept giving out all the orders, all these guys in front of me. And I'm thinking, this is not going to be good. And of course, I get orders for the 1st Marines with 2nd Battalion, 1st Marines, which was literally 3 miles up the road from where I was at School of Infantry there. And I'm thinking, man, this is going to suck. But when I got to my unit, I found out that actually it was probably one of the best duty stations you could get in the Marine Corps, because the 1st Marine Regiment, we did Westpacs. So, you spent 18 months training and ramping up for the deployment, and then you got to go spend 6 months cruising around the Pacific on a ship, So that's where my sea stories started, was, about 6 months after I got to the unit, we went on our first Westpac there in 88. And I was, my unit, we were on the USS Ogden, which is a LPD, I believe is what that was.
Okay.
And it was great. I mean, cruising around and, going to the Philippines and Thailand and Australia, and I became a shellback on that Westpac. So,
Oh, great.
yeah,
There you go.
not you
When you
can still
crossed
smell
over,
it, right?
right? Don't worry.
So,
And so I just wanted to say I did get my. I always call this my studio, but it's really an office. I just redid it, so I'm going to hang up. I do have my shell book back certificate. I've got to hang that. I've got my surface warfare certificate. I won't start hanging stuff up, but I'll get to that
yeah,
later. But yeah, so when you became a shellback, where were you like heading? Did you go to Australia, or was it just right by
yeah,
Singapore and you
yeah.
dipped through?
We were on our way down to Australia. Now we were going to Perth and Fremantle down
Oh,
there. So we
okay.
went down and did a week long field op out there in Australia, and then we got to have Libo there in Perth. We got to spend, I think it was like 5 days there in Perth, and
Okay.
man, that was such a good time. But
Yeah.
getting there with the whole shellback initiation, that was something else. I mean, I heard rumors and stories about it, but nothing can really prepare you for that smell and
Yeah. Oh,
what they do to you that day.
right. I'll have to bring it in. Maybe I'll bring it on Wednesday if I remember. I do have my cruise book from the Hewitt, and it does document that. It's in the cruise book when they went over. But I was a shellback at that time. I went over on the towers when we were
Okay.
going from um, the Persian Gulf down to Mombasa, Kenya. That's where I went over the line. And so what happened was, everybody on the Hugh was like, "What? You are a shellback?" "Yes, I am," because they kind of targeted me. Whatever, I don't care. But then what they were a little disappointed to know I'm already shellback. But that was a nice thing going down in the Perth, and that's the key is what did you do in Perth? What did you like about Perth besides well, I mean, the
Well,
Australian ladies,
yeah. Oh,
former
yeah.
American sailors
Yeah.
and Marines. Come on.
Well, yeah. You go into Australia wearing a Marine uniform. It's a good thing. Um, you know, During that time of my life, I was drinking pretty heavy.
Mhm.
So whenever we did go into port, um, as most Marines did in that era, and sailors, uh, we overdid everything, and the Australian beer was quite a bit stronger than I anticipated,
Mhm.
you know.
Yeah.
But it sure was nice, being in Australia. It was a cool city. Had a good time there, and we'd met a we'd met an old Australian guy at a bar, and he told us that he served with the Marines in the Big Green, and we were like, the Big Green? What the hell is this guy talking about? Well, the Big Green is what they called Vietnam. So, a lot of Australians also served in Vietnam as one of our allies. And he was a Vietnam vet and served in the Big Green with the First Marines. And man, he started picking up rounds of beers for all the Marines, and it was cool. It turns out he owned a bar, and he's like, guys,
Okay.
all you Marines come with me. Took us over to his place, and we continued the party there, and nobody paid for a thing. I mean, he paid for all the drinks, we paid for all the food, and it was like, that's where we're going every day while we were there, and it was cool, man. I mean, uh, I didn't expect that being in a foreign country to meet a guy that had served in Vietnam that wasn't an American. So,
Right. Wow.
yeah, it was cool.
Oh, that's great. And so I was gonna say, when you went on board, and of course, I always had to jump straight to Australia because I had a great time in Australia as well. But they sent us down to Bunbury, which Bunbury is south, so it's south of Perth. So,
Okay.
but it's a little tiny town. We were on a little destroyer, so the destroyer was able to go in, no problem.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I think they sent somebody else a little north of Perth, but that was another destroyer. But yeah, we went to Australia, and it was a great time. But when when you did get in on a ship, what was that first port? Did you go to Hawaii first, or into Pearl,
Uh,
or what was
no,
that first port?
the first port we went to was Subic Bay in the Philippines.
Oh,
Yeah, so went
yeah,
straight from the U.S. Took us like 4 weeks to get there. Because we're driving
yeah,
circles out in the ocean doing maneuvers and stuff. But yeah, being a first timer, this was the first time I'd ever even been to a foreign country in my life. Was
right.
the Philippines and crossing the river. The river with the famous name, and it
Yep,
smelled
yeah, we'll
just like
say it. It's Shit River.
yeah,
Yeah,
smelled just like the
it's
name.
yep,
And
it does. I
it's
still remember that smell too. That's the one that I do remember a lot. It's like, oh,
yeah, yeah. I mean, it was a great time, and we got to go out and after we did our libo there, then we spent some time out in the jungle and doing some training and doing
hmm,
maneuvers over there. And then we'd go back into town and we cruised over. From there, I think we went to Hong Kong, and then we went to Thailand,
hmm,
and
nice, nice.
that was a great place. It was I think we did the training we did there was it was Cobra Gold is what they called the big training
Yes.
over there, and then we got I think we probably got 5 or 6 nights there in Thailand on Liberty, and that was
Hmm.
another interesting story.
Yeah.
If you want to hear a story,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I definitely know about that. I hate because it's something where it's a fact of life when you go to Thailand, and it's been there for years. But you don't know sometimes, and that was one of those things they always told us: do a package check. All right.
yeah, yeah, I learned the hard way.
Yeah.
I got up to my room with one of the locals, and he proceeded to tell me, me, you, same. I'd never heard that before. So I had to ask. It's like,
Yeah.
same. What? And she said, oh, me, you, same. And I said, ah, same. So I
Yeah.
got it.
Yeah.
And, well, I politely asked for my money back, and I
Hmm.
got my money back and went on my way. At
Yep.
least
Yeah.
that's the story I'm going to go with tonight.
Yep.
So
We'll take it. But yeah, that's I know, I know. So I was 19 when I went there the first time, and I was just petrified, like, oh no, this isn't right. And, of course, the young lady I met, um, she did certain shows, and during those certain shows, you saw certain things, and you're like, you
yeah,
definitely know it's okay.
yeah,
She's a she. We're good. Yeah.
yeah.
Um, but when you were out this port, and of course, sailors, Marines, sometimes it's oil and water. But in the end of the day, it's always fun to hang out with people. But sometimes people, or I know sailors get a little cocky, Marines get a little cocky. Were there any? Because especially when you're on a ship, you made friends with sailors, right?
Oh
Or
yeah,
was
yeah.
it
Of
just
course,
did you
man.
talk to?
Yeah.
Mhm.
No, it definitely made some friends with some of the sailors that were on the ship. Not all of them, but
Mhm.
um, yeah. And some of the guys. I mean, when we get out into when we get into town, we've spent enough time on ship with each other that um, the Marines kind of stick to their bars and the sailors kind of stick to their bars. And,
Yeah,
of course, our Navy corpsmen, they're with the Marines. They're considered Marines in
absolutely.
our eyes, but, I really didn't see, I didn't see a lot of trouble fights or anything like that going on out in town. There was always things that were going down, of course, but I wasn't paying attention to everything else that was going on unless I was involved with it. I could care less, man. I was just there to blow off some steam and meet some of the locals and have some food and see some of the local sites in the cities over there. And Thailand is, man, that's a beautiful country. I mean, the countryside out there is just beautiful. I just wish I wasn't, carrying 90 pounds on my back and having to climb up every single hill while I was there. And I could have enjoyed the scenery a little more, but what a night. I'd love to go back someday. So,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because you definitely had a different perspective when you were, training, because whenever we were training, it was doing a lot of circles, working with the different navies. We would, in the Philippines, we were always off the coast, and we would just use our 5-inch guns and place those rounds in the hillside that was right, off the coast.
yeah.
So we never got to go on shore, but that was such a great experience for you to be able to go and, trek through the jungle, like you said, with 90 pounds on your back. It would be a challenge, obviously, but it's just, and of course, as a young Marine, you're like, I can do it, no problem. But yeah, to experience that scenery. I do have a friend right now. He is traveling through Vietnam, and he's traveling through Vietnam on a little scooter.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, get a motorcycle, but I guess he'd have to go and get a motorcycle license and go through all that. But, right now, like Southeast Asia is so open to, for tourism. And I heard that and I was like, I want to now on the bucket list, I'm going to take a little scooter or whatever through the countryside in Vietnam.
Wow.
That's one of down the road. Give me a couple of years, I'll be there. But same thing with Thailand. I mean, just going there, and that's one reason why I do like to take cruises, because I love being at sea, but I don't want to work. I don't want to work while I'm at sea. I just remember for hour after hour sitting in front of the councils, looking for missiles, or if I wasn't there, I'd have to just go up to my workshop and work there, or occasionally you get to hang out on deck and watch the sunset. That's the nice part, but it doesn't happen that often. But, what were some of the takeaways that you have from just being on a ship? What did you like?
You know what?
Did you like?
The living conditions that they put the Marines in on the ships, especially on those, on the troop ships, those older ships, all of the ships that I was on were all, mid to early 60s in the construction, and of course, the Marines, they don't get the greatest berthing areas, and they got us packed in literally like sardines, where the ship's crew, the permanent crew, their berthing areas were a lot nicer. Of course, that's their long-term home, where with the Marines, we're on it for, 6-month deployments or less, or more sometimes, depending. But, we basically, we got up and we ate chow and we worked out, PT'd and cleaned weapons and worked out some more, and read some books and worked out some more, and that was about the life of the Marines on ship. We were just kind of waiting to get to the next port. We got to do some, they let us do some live fire exercises off the back of the deck. And of course we would practice loading and unloading the helicopters, and, we'd get in and we'd fly out and come back and land on the deck and disembark. And then we'd load up and we'd do it again and again and again, because we had to be ready in a moment's notice to get all your gear and get on those birds and get going wherever they need to send you, So, it's kind of a long, tedious time when you're on ship for a Marine back then. I don't know how things are now. Of course, We didn't have the internet back then. There was not satellite TV. Maybe we had a VCR and whatever tapes that somebody would bring on the ship with them. And, for mail, I mean, it's snail mail back then. You couldn't go on and video and FaceTime your family back then. So it was long, boring times at sea.
Yep. Yeah, you're right. Mail call was something else. I always enjoyed mail call. Hopefully I get something.
Yeah.
My mom was always pretty good about getting me a letter. And of course I got letters occasionally from other people and I was pretty happy about it. But you mentioned the VCRs and that was something that I really liked. And I did ask my mom to do that. It was like, just record MTV, just hit record, leave the commercials, don't cut it. Just do MTV. So we had videos. At least we had videos and we had commercials, and that kind of kept us, knowledgeable. Because when I went to Japan, I was in Japan for 2 years straight. So granted, I came home for a couple weeks, but that was it. There was just one trip back, and besides those couple weeks back home, I was in Japan or some other country, and so we didn't get regular commercials. We got, just. I remember there was an Arnold Schwarzenegger commercial, and he had a little energy drink, and he's like Daijobu or Daijobui. That was it. It was close to Daijobu, whatever. But that was what I remember. And it's like, oh god, just horrible commercials.
I remember back in the 80s, the ColecoVision handheld football game, right?
Oh yeah, yes, yeah.
One guy in my platoon had one of those, and I'll tell you what, we wore that thing out.
Yeah.
We would fight over who was going to play the ColecoVision, and you just sit there and hand, pushing little buttons and you're just doing the little dots on the screen playing football. And it was like, man, I would have given anything for like a modern day video game back then,
Right. And it is funny because how technology advanced so quickly. I know exactly what you're talking about with the football game. I love that football game. But yeah, and at the end of my tour, so 94, we actually had a PC in our workshop. So, and it was just for training, but we put Doom on it. And Doom was like one of those first person shooter games. And that was from 1993, 94. And we just thought we were cutting edge. Like, wow, this is really cool. Doom's great. But yeah, you're right. You do something to break up the monotony because it's out there.
Play spades or you play bones. That was it.
Yeah.
That was it, man.
Oh yeah.
I think a lot of the guys would smoke. I mean, guys started smoking while on ship, just as something to break up the monotony. They'd go have a cigarette, and it was like, that was one thing I never did of all the bad habits I picked up. And I picked up a lot of bad habits in my life. Smoking cigarettes was never one of them. And I mean, everybody I knew seemed like they smoked,
Yeah.
And it's like,
exactly. And that was when I first got on board, 19 years old, on USS Towers. And they said, we're going to the Persian Gulf. The stress level is going to be pretty high. You will start smoking. No, I didn't. I didn't start smoking. But I did take advantage of the point when my friends did go out for a cigarette on the fantail. I went with them. Hey, I get a break just like they get a break.
Oh,
so I'll take that. Although, at the end, when I was on the Mount Whitney, we had one restroom and they said, okay, this is going to be a designated smoking area. And I said, great. Guess what? I'm not cleaning it. I don't smoke. I'm not cleaning it. And I got away with it. But I remember it was just bright white. In the beginning. We painted all before. And within matter of days or weeks, it was just tan. Kind of looked like my walls. It just was nasty. And I was like, that's why I'm not cleaning it. And
you imagine what it just doing to your lungs at that point, right?
That was it. That was exactly it. It was horrendous. I couldn't believe it. But yeah, I'm right with you. I did not, cave to the pressure of smoking. So same thing. But kind of going back to what you were talking about earlier, when I was young, the same way, I did drink a lot. I
Yeah.
did. Yeah, I think they did. It's not like they sent me into a program. It was just one of those things like, hey, you just got to be a little more responsible. And it kind
Yeah.
of, woke me up. And I did chill out, although, like I said, it was just one class just because they kind of noticed that I was kind of going overboard. Yeah, hey,
Yeah.
that's what happens when you're 19
Yeah.
overseas. And then, um, yeah, eventually I met somebody and that calmed me down a lot too. So
Yeah.
it happens. Cool. So you said you went to Hong Kong as well. Anything special in Hong Kong that stood out?
Yeah. You know what, man? It was such a big city, back then.
Yeah.
And the one thing I will always remember Hong Kong was it was during my second Westpac. I was on the Okinawa at the time, on the
Okay.
USS Okinawa, which was an LPH, so like a mini aircraft carrier for helicopters.
Yes.
But we were in Hong Kong, and the shore patrol were bursting into all the bars and restaurants, and we're telling everybody back to the ships right now. Not a drill. Don't ask questions. Don't finish your beer. Don't finish your food. Get back to the ship right now. And it was like, wow, something's going on. And sure enough, we got back to the ship. They did a head count, pulled up the anchor, and they came on and told us that Iraq had invaded Kuwait, and it's going down, and everybody in the military, basically, in one way, shape, or form, is either going or going to be supporting those that are there. So, you know, we we hauled butt back to the Philippines, and it was going down from there. And from there, it was heading straight over, man. So we were
Hmm.
one of the first Marine units to get over there, and we got there, and heck, we still had the green camouflage utilities. We didn't even have desert camis yet. So,
Wow.
got those later, but everybody was still wearing green when we got there. So, but
Absolutely.
that's what I remember Hong Kong for was, you know, I had, it was like the only place you could get Kentucky Fried Chicken or McDonald's over there, because none of the other
Uh-huh.
places we went to had it. So, and it wasn't quite the same as
Yeah.
what we had here, but it was like, wow, something other than food on the ship, So, um, but yeah, that's Hong Kong it was kind of the start of a blur from there.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So when you went over, to the Persian Gulf, was it just sitting offshore waiting, or did they bring you into Saudi Arabia at
It's
any
a
point
lot of
to?
time was sitting offshore waiting. You'd go ashore for a while and you'd stay on ship for a while. The whole plan was, they they put a huge contingent of ships and troops out in the Persian Gulf to you know let Saddam know that this is an option, that we're loading up everybody out here, and we can come from the ocean or we can come from in Saudi Arabia. So he couldn't just put all of his troops on the border. He had to spread them out to try to cover everything. So the the diversion of putting that many Marines out in the ocean, kept them honest. They couldn't just, you know, put everybody over in one spot thinking nothing's going to happen from over here. So,
So how long did you stay in the Persian Gulf? Was it all through Desert
yeah, you know
Shield?
what? We were over from Desert Shield through Desert Storm. Um, and I think we started heading back. I think it was probably the mid to late March of '91,
Okay.
and I remember we got back to the U.S. It was April 15th, and
Wow.
when that helicopter finally landed at Camp Pendleton, and we got out and we were back on U.S. soil. Literally, we all got off and we got down and we kissed kiss the pavement there at the landing strip,
Yeah.
and at the time, a lot of our senior enlisted personnel and all of our senior officers, they were all Vietnam veterans. So when they came back from Vietnam, the reception that they got compared to the reception we got after Desert Storm was night and day from what they received their first time, and so they had a lot of parades and that kind of stuff, and watching a lot of those senior Marines that never got that welcome home back in the 60s or early 70s, they did get that welcome home then, and
Mhm.
it was really good to see that those guys got the recognition, and they finally got a welcome home that so many of those guys, that got out during Vietnam didn't get that welcome home, and
Right. Wow. Yeah, because I remember that was the big thing with the Marines in the Persian Gulf, like you mentioned, was they kind of used you guys as a diversionary tactic. Like, hey, they're going to be, landing on and then they just did that end around right
yeah,
around
I think they
Kuwait.
launched they launched some of the Navy SEALs, and
Uh-huh.
they did a pretty good job where like a whole platoon of SEALs made it look like a battalion of Marines were coming, So I
Yeah.
think they started pulling some guys off the line and putting them over on the coast, thinking it was going down, but
Right.
the it worked out. I mean, it was. I think it ended too soon. I think that I wish they
Uh-huh.
would have let us completely take Saddam out of power, and
Yeah.
we wouldn't have had to go back again, had we just
Yeah.
done it then. But that's not my call, not my decision. You can only do what's asked of you when you're there. But
Yeah.
um, it just kind of seems like it's never ending over there, and I I couldn't. I had a hard time wrapping my head around it when I was there, and I talked to one of the chaplains in our battalion, and I was trying to wrap my whole head around what's going on over there, and our chaplain really put it to me better, explained it, the whole situation over there, better than I've ever could ever figure it out. Was He told me, he said, look, he said, you know what, they've been fighting over here since before Jesus walked, and he says they're still going to be fighting over here long after we're all gone. He said, so you just need to survive and get out, you know, but it's never going to end. It's not going to stop. War has been going on since, the beginning of man, and it'll continue to go on. And unfortunately, the human being is one of the smartest creatures ever. I mean, we've came from, walking on our hands and feet, living in a cave, to the point where we've dug things out of the ground, and we've built satellites, and we've shot satellites that have already left our solar system. Yet
Yeah.
we're the dumbest creature that seems to fight each other for the smallest things, and the human race does horrible things to each other. They do dumb, horrible things to each other. Such a brilliant creature, but so dumb at the same time, you know?
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. Well said. Yeah. That's I mean, it's amazing because just all the history in the Middle East, and then just like you could tell, just war after war after war for so many years, and like I said, the Saddam with fighting Iraq, in the 80s. I think it was 8 years.
Yeah,
They fought.
fought
And
Iran for 8 years.
yeah, or Iran. Yeah,
Yeah,
Iraq and Iran. And then after that, they're like, "Oh, we'll just take Kuwait." And it's like, "Oh, geez." So,
yeah,
I think they were looking for a win. It wasn't a win because, I think that just got everybody up in arms. And, I think it finally called a bluff because the U.S. was waiting for something like this for so many years. And the fall of the Soviet Union right before that just sent a message like, "Hey, we've got all this. We're not going this back down, obviously." And,
yeah,
um, now, so I know that there's been a lot of issues in the Persian Gulf, or at that point, for burn pits, air quality. What are some of the issues you've seen? Like, I know the PAC Act was, came out recently for anybody over in the Middle East during
yeah.
Desert Storm, Desert Shield. What have you seen? What was some of the things that you've experienced with the air quality and just the conditions that were
Well,
over
yeah. I
there?
mean, the air quality was horrible, and
Yeah.
if you look at it this way, is we know that Iraq had chemical weapons. It was pretty well documented. I mean, he used those chemical weapons on the Kurds. He used them against Iran. And of course, we go in there and blow up all of their weapons depots. I mean, massively destroyed all of that. So you got all that toxic substances now in the air. Saddam lights up all the oil wells. So that's all burning. You got all that fine silica dust that's in the air from the sand, all the other toxins that go around, everything that's over there. And you put it all together in one huge cloud, and you breathe that cloud of air in for months on end. Um, it's it's toxic air. You're breathing poison. You know, so the VA, the Health Administration, is determined that anybody on the ground or within 2,000 miles of the place, the air was poison.
Mhm.
And thankfully, they've come up with the PACT Act, and it's included a lot of other things in it now that were the VA had kind of you know denied the existence of such conditions from being over there, kind of like how the Vietnam veterans, they didn't recognize Agent Orange for 20 years after those guys came back, and a lot of the guys were
Mhm.
suffering and dying from it. And then finally, the VA recognized it, and it took a lot of years for them to finally recognize some of the things that were causing guys to be sick. I knew guys that I'd served over there with. We were sick while we were there, and were
Mhm.
very sick after we came home for months on end. You couldn't get out of the bathroom. And
Yeah.
it was bad. And guys would go to the VA, and the VA'd say, "Well, sorry about that. Don't know what it is. Not service related." And so a lot of guys um, just kind of gave up. And said, "Well, it is what it is." And finally, they started recognizing some of the stuff. I had never, I'd grown up, I was pretty healthy. And a couple years ago, I started having some chest pain, and I thought maybe I was having a heart attack or something. And went to the VA, and they ran all kinds of tests. I mean, they had me running on a treadmill, and they were putting dye in me, and they're doing all this tests. And they said, you don't have a heart blockage. I'm not sure why you got the chest pain and shortness of breath. Hell, I'd come in carrying a couple of bags of groceries, and I'd be winded. My wife's like, "Why are you breathing so hard?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I know I'm not in the greatest shape, but why am I breathing so
Yep.
hard?" So the VA says, "We're going to have you take a pulmonary test." I didn't even know what that was. They said, "Well, we're going to check you for asthma." And I said, "Nah, I'm in my mid 50s. I've never had asthma in my life. And they said, well, you're a Desert Storm veteran. That air was toxic. And now a lot of guys in their mid 50s are developing asthma. Never had it
Uh-huh.
before, but starting to develop it. And sure enough, I took the test and they said, you've got asthma. Put me on a daily
Hmm.
inhaler and gave me the albuterol rescue inhaler, and it's really helped, and then they brought me in and did a second test, and I thought, well, that first one's that can't be it, and they did a second test, and sure enough, the doctor said, you definitely have asthma. And turns out that, a lot of guys that were there are developing asthma, and sleep apnea and other things that, you at a way higher proportion than other guys your age who weren't there. So
Yep.
thank God that the VA has finally started to recognize some of this stuff. And I think they're going to start recognizing even more conditions and symptoms of things. A lot of guys that were near the burn pits in Iraq and Afghanistan are developing brain cancer. You know,
Oh,
uh,
wow.
you and I, we both personally know somebody that's high up in
Uh-huh.
our local VA, or excuse me, in our
Yeah.
local VFW that is, going through brain cancer, and
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
from being next to a burn pit in Afghanistan. So, uh,
Oof.
thankfully the VA is finally helping some of these guys that are in really bad shape, so.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because I've been rated myself, but I know I've got some more work. I've got to work on myself because, like you said, I do have the chest. Because going up and down the stairs, I do get winded, and I don't know why. I ran a marathon 20 years ago. I'm in good shape. I shouldn't be
Yeah,
experiencing asthma like symptoms, but yeah, definitely I was over there at that time. But I had an issue in my back. It was just kind of I think it's a nerve thing. So the VA through community care sent me to a chiropractor for 12 visits. And so
yeah,
I'm going through that. But the reason why I'm telling you that is because I was talking to the girl at the front desk, the receptionist, and her dad was in Vietnam. And we were talking about, I was like, does he have, and I think she even said that he does have issues from Agent Orange. I said, so I would imagine he went through the VA and he got rated. She said, no, he didn't
yeah,
do anything about it. And he's in Arkansas. So
yeah,
I did talk to her brother. I'm trying to get her brother on because her brother was, he retired, I think, after 20 years in the Navy. And so I want to talk to him as well and get him scheduled. But we're working on that one. I've got a lot of people I want to schedule.
yeah,
So hey, if anybody that listens to this podcast or wants to, join us or join me for the podcast, just I've got underweightbooks.com/contact me. Contact me, drop me a note. I'll definitely get you scheduled. But yeah, that's great because we do talk a lot. We do, we're out in the community, and then I like to talk to people even outside the community where uh, like I said, the guy in Arkansas,
yeah,
he's never you've gotten that assistance from the VA because he was in Vietnam, and he does have those effects from
yeah,
Agent Orange. I know we also have another friend in the VFW who has direct problems because of Agent
yeah.
Orange. So
And that's the great thing
just
about the VFW, Pat, is the VA really struggled, and it was not doing a very good job. And the VFW stepped up and in Washington D.C. started spending a lot of money to hold the VA accountable to take care of veterans. And to this day, the VFW is the organization that brought the VA healthcare system to where it is now, which is night and day compared to how it was just 15, 20 years ago, but continue to push the VA to do better, to take care of our veterans better. and the VFW holds the VA accountable out in DC. And, you know, fighting for us veterans on our behalf with the VA is huge. And that alone is a good reason for anybody who is a veteran who served to go out and join your local VFW post. Or, you know, if you're not eligible to join the VFW, find ways to support the VFW, because all in all the support that the VFW gives or gets, it all goes back to helping veterans in the community with, with healthcare or any other needs, and being a support group for each other is another huge thing. You know, our VFW is a little different than some of the other VFWs. I mean, they get the reputation as being a bunch of old, grouchy guys that sit inside the same four walls and they smoke and they drink and they argue. And, you know, our VFW is a little different. We get out and we're in the community, and, you know, we don't have a post building, but we've got a couple of pretty nice little watering holes we get together in town. But, you know, being active in the community and getting the word out about the VFW is helping grow our post and helping the VFW in general grow, because, you know, after World War II, there was a lot of guys in the VFW, and then the Korean guys and the Vietnam guys. And let's face it, you know, the World War II guys are almost all gone now. And the Korean and Vietnam guys, you know, they're passing away at a pretty good clip right now. And if we don't start bringing in some of the younger veterans into the VFW, you know, the numbers are going to keep going down. And I hopefully it doesn't get there. But if you know, we don't turn things around, the VFW may not always be around, you know. And I'm going to do my part. I know you're doing your part, and we're going to keep growing it to the best we can out here, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's a big part of it is, you know, if we keep growing it, we can create that legacy. I don't want it to be something in the future where it's like, hey, we need some more wars so we can get more veterans and
Yeah.
you know, so members in the VFW. But you know, there's always going to be conflict. We're always going to be involved somehow. The global war on terrorism is not going away. I think there's still when they go overseas. I think even in the because I received my first medal going into the Persian Gulf when we were kind of interested in the Iranians in '89. But that was an expeditionary medal. And then the second time I went back in was for Desert Storm. So two different ways of qualifying for VFW. But yeah, it's there's, like you said earlier, there's always going to be conflict in the Middle East or just globally. And the U.S. is always there to help. We're always going to be, you know, stepping up. We have the military to help out. We have the Navy's a big, big organization with a lot of different ships, and we can extend our power anywhere we want in the world. So,
Navy is that is a mighty force right there, my friend.
Absolutely. So, you know, to wrap things up, what is like your takeaway from your time in the Corps? How did that help you in life, you know, to get you where you are today?
Yeah, for sure. You know, the discipline that I learned in the Corps, accountability, integrity, you know, those are key traits that I've picked up and I've used throughout my personal life all these years. You know, strong work ethic, you know, you're going to get the job done no matter what. You know, they always say the old improvise, adapt, and overcome thing, you know, but it really is, you know, it's a thing, you know. And if you, you know, you put all the things that you learn in the military, how to work with each other as a team, how to get along with everybody, you know, you take those traits and you apply it in the civilian world, the sky's the limit. I've been lucky to be employed with the same company for, quite a few years now. And, I've got a great wife. We just celebrated 31 years together. A couple weeks ago was our anniversary. And, I owe a lot to my wife as well. She's put up with me, through the good and the bad. She's been there through it all. There's been a lot of bad. There's been a lot of good, but I was, kind of living in a bottle at the bottom of a bottle, when I met my wife, and I'm glad she stuck around and stuck with me and helped me kind of, put that away. And, I wanted to be a better husband, and I wanted to be a father. And I knew that, living at the bottom of a bottle was, not a place I was going to be to get where I wanted to be in life. So, you put the whole thing together, because life is it's not just one thing. It's many different things that you experience throughout your life makes you who you are, both good and bad. And you can't let all of the bad things define you as much as you can't let all the good things define you. You got to take them both, and you persevere through it, and you become a better person because of all of that, and that's, that's the thing. I served my country in the Marines, and I feel like now, being a member of the VFW, I'm serving again. I'm serving in my community, and I'm serving side by side with brothers and sisters like yourself, Pat, who I consider to be my friends, lifelong friends. Some of the friendships that I've made just in these last few years in the VFW, these are going to be lifelong friends. And I want to shout out to my buddy Dragon from our
Dragon.
VFW. Hopefully you're listening to this podcast at 2 a.m, because sometimes I'll listen to podcasts at night, go to sleep, and one podcast rolls into another. And it was a few weeks back. I was laying in bed, and a podcast came on, and I started listening. I was like, man, that kind of sounds like Pat. I started listening a little more, and I was like, man, that is Pat. So of course, I'm wide awake at that point, listening to it, and I called you the next day and said, hey, buddy, thanks a lot. You cost me like 4 hours of sleep last night because I couldn't go back to bed. So hopefully, Dragon, hopefully you're listening. I hope you lose some sleep now.
Yeah. So when you hear this, Jim, it's going to pop up again at 2 a.m. You'll be like, am I just dreaming myself? You're hearing yourself then.
I'll probably listen to it and I'll go, man, I sound like an idiot. Listen to me. Do I sound like that? Do I really sound like that?
I know. I can't hear myself either. I never listen to these, although they clip them up, and I hear myself. I'm like, there I am again. I don't need to hear it. So, but Jim, you're right on the money. I'm very proud to be a member of the VFW, and I'm very proud to be your friend. Thank you so much for embracing me, as a member of the VFW. And I'm happy. I'm excited to see where we can go with just our little organization here in Parker, Colorado. And like I said,
you're a good man, Pat Riley. You're a good man, and I'm proud to call you my friend and my brother.
Absolutely. Jim, thank you so much. I will say I do have to plug the book like always. It's just sitting over my shoulder all the time. I do have another book coming out in a couple weeks. I'm still kind of playing around with that one. And I do have the other book sometime in the spring. I need to get overseas. Jim, we might have to go to Thailand just to check some things out.
If you need a bodyguard, research. Pat, I'm your man. I'm your Huckleberry.
There you go. Yeah. It does include Hong Kong, which is nice, and
Yeah.
Malaysia. I've never been to Malaysia, but yeah, underwaybooks.com. That's where my website is, and then of course all podcasts. Was it Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts? I'm everywhere. So, all right, everyone. Thanks so much, Jim. Stick on. We got to upload some files, but thanks so much, bud.
You're welcome.